What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Young Musician's Guide podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Campbell. If you're new to this podcast, this is a series of conversations I have with musicians from all sorts of different musical backgrounds and professions to give younger musicians an idea of what the opportunities are out there in the working musical field. Today, I am joined by the very awesome Pete Echols. Pete teaches at a private school, and I thought this was a really cool conversation to talk about music education, but in a different way. And Pete literally teaches everything. He teaches band, orchestra, choir, 6 through 12. I mean, he teaches generally all the music that you could touch, as well as like AP music theory and things like that. So he teaches a wide variety of things, but also not in a public institution. So I thought his input was really cool, and his experience is really neat. And he also kind of gives us a better sense of what it's like working at a private school. But before we get into that conversation, I just want to plug again, I am in the middle of working for a CD project. I'm going to link down in the description down below how you can or help me fund the project through a GoFundMe campaign that we are doing. And it's really, right now, it's kind of a glorified pre-order system. We have a bunch of extra incentives for anybody who happens to donate and at different levels. And it's really exciting. And once this GoFundMe goes away, so do these incentives. So at least check it out and see if there's anything on there that you're interested in. Of course, if you want to help this podcast grow, feel free to comment and like and subscribe and do all those things. Also leave a rating on the iTunes store. That helps us grow. That gets us into more people's ears and helps us be capable of doing bigger things. Also, if you feel like you're getting a high value out of this, I highly suggest you go over to the Patreon and check that out. That's linked in the description down below. You'll be able to help me monetarily cover the costs that are associated. I mean, there's just a bunch of things that go on. Just hosting it costs money, but also the equipment and upkeep for that and all that kind of stuff. And so a little bit of help is always appreciated. If you don't know what Patreon is, essentially, if you pledge $1 every time I post a podcast, it takes $1 away from your bank account, gives it to me, and I'm able to put it towards the podcast. This money doesn't go for me, for my pocket. It just goes for me to help out the podcast. So if you feel like you're getting a high value and you want to invest some of your funds into this, please go over and check out the Patreon. Anyway, that's enough of the business side of things. Let's get right into the conversation I got to have with private school music teacher Pete Echols. How's it, how did the graduation and everything go?
It was good, man. I was had a couple people come in. I just formed a brass quintet, and so I had 2 of my trumpet players come in and play, and then my our lower school or our elementary school music teacher plays bass, so I just had him play for us.
Oh, that's really cool.
So with 2 trumpets that can read and a bass, I mean, you can do just about anything.
And you're always kind of involving a lot of staff too.
Yeah. If you remember the teacher that played with us, the trumpet player teacher.
Yeah.
So he did that as well.
Awesome. So let's go back. So you got a degree in music ed, right?
Yeah.
So
music education.
When you were going through school, did you ever think that you would be like, what was the thought process as you were going through school in terms of where you wanted to end up?
Well, I went to a public middle school, public high school, public university. So I figured I would be a public high school band teacher, marching band director, probably. I thought I would really like middle school as well, but I just assumed I would end up in a public school, and that's where I came from. But I'm really happy that I'm at a private school now.
So what got you to the private school? I mean, you get out of college and you just kind of throw out resumes everywhere you can and apply everywhere. And was this just one that caught, or?
Yeah, well, I graduated from college and I said I'll never move back home. And so it is back home. But I was looking at things around here and I saw that was available. And I said, well, if I'm living back home, that would be actually really cool to work there. I knew the school. I didn't go to it, and I didn't know a whole lot of people from there, but I knew of it, and I just thought that'd be really fun to be involved with them.
So, and this is what you just ended your second year there.
Second year, yes.
Second year. Have things been different between the 2 years since you've gotten your footing? Because this was your first full-time teaching gig, right?
Right. I had long-term substitute taught as an orchestra teacher. My background is band, though, but then this was my first full-time job. So yes, things have gotten a little different. I mean, just being that it's my second year, I knew what was going on. I knew who to talk to. I knew how to get results. I knew the building. So things only get easier with time.
So what are all of your responsibilities? Like, what are all the things you teach at your school?
Quick answer is I just say I teach band, chorus, orchestra, but it's 6 through 12 at my campus. We do have a lower school or elementary school campus as well. But this year I teach 6th grade band, a 7th and 8th grade band that is combined. I taught a 6th grade chorus this year. I taught the middle school and upper school combined chorus. And then after school, I taught a chamber ensemble, which is our big performing art orchestra, and then a fermata, an a cappella group that meets after school as well.
So you teach music.
Music, all of it. I also taught AP Music Theory this year, last year, and then coming up next year, I teach a music appreciation with some basic theory thrown in as a prerequisite for AP.
So that's kind of funny, too, because a lot of people, I mean, I remember going through my ed degree and being like, going through like string tech and things like that and being like, I'm never going to use this. This is stupid. Why am I paying attention? Like, I'm remembering that, and then like, and I'm sure you probably had similar feelings going through or just frustrations or irritations, and here you are literally using everything that your music ed degree taught.
Yeah, it's when I got the job, I emailed a bunch of my professors, but it wasn't the ones that I was. It wasn't my brass professors that I was emailing. It was the voice teachers at the school or the string teacher at the school. Hey, I need help. Need lots of help. Send me resources. What can I do?
And would you say that's part of your, like, that was the biggest challenge coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways it's certainly, I feel like every music teacher is going to end up teaching something outside of their comfort zone. I mean, how many high school band directors are experts at bassoon fingerings, right? How many chorus teachers are experts at Baroque music as well as super modern music? I feel like we're all teaching something that's outside of our comfort zone. It's just a matter of being willing and able to investigate and figure out and get up to par with where you need to be. Oh yeah,
I mean, even like guitar classes and stuff like that. A lot of people everywhere, and so we're talking about private school, and one of the interesting things is like, public schools, for the most part, I mean, they have their differences, but a lot of what to expect with them. With private schools, each one is different, and it's would you say, because you kind of come in your first year, your second year, and you're doing what has been done before you, but do you feel like there's more freedom to create your own kind of curriculum in the private school setting?
Yeah, I think so. I think it really depends on your administrators. But for the most part, I mean, yeah, we're pretty free to do what we see as fit, and it's pretty simple in the music world, I guess, because it's all pretty much based around your performances. And so going into the job, well, you're going to have your spring concert, you're going to have your winter or your Christmas concert, and you'll probably have some sort of back to school October, November sort of concert as well. And so, you base everything based off of those three. I've pretty much just gone method books from there. So I know these are our concerts coming up, get the literature prepared, get the method books in between. So we're still learning new things and continuing to work, and make sure that the concert sounds as good as possible.
And how close is your, I mean, all right, so you don't call it principal at your school, right? What is the head honcho called?
So every private school is going to have a head of school. Formerly, you would call that a headmaster, but that's an antiquated term, so we just call it head of school because it could be a female at any school. And then below that, you generally will have some sort of dean of academics or dean of student life or something to that effect. So I kind of assume those to be my principals and my principal, vice principal, and I kind of tend to think of our head as a superintendent because really he's overseeing 3 schools. He's seeing the lower school, the middle school, and the high school or upper school.
And are they super involved in what you're doing? Like, do you see them at your door frequently? Are they breathing down your neck, or do you feel a good sense of freedom? Because you kind of have an entire wing of a building to yourself.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, I did a small tour earlier in the winter, and Pete's school is one of the schools I played at. So I've spent time there. I've been there. I also grew up in the town that it's in, so I know the school very well. And he has probably the coolest hookup in terms of area and facilities that you could possibly have because you're separated from everybody. You don't have to deal with anyone.
Right. By nature of the job, they're never going to put the music class next to an English classroom or something because we're just making so much noise. So the next classroom is literally a block and a half away from me, which is kind of cool.
And do you find your administration, kind of poking their heads in, or do you feel like a lot of freedom where you're at?
Yeah, no, I feel super supported. I mean, they support me so much. But yeah, I do feel a lot of freedom, and I can pretty much choose the repertoire that I want to. We do have a religious affiliation, so I do try and choose a few religious pieces on all of our concerts. But no, I feel like I'm very free, and my administrator told me, if we didn't trust you to do the job we hired you to do, then we wouldn't have hired you for it. So I'm not turning in lesson plans. Yeah, right. Because we trust you, we hired you, and so I don't turn in lesson plans. Every week, like I know that some teachers at some other schools are doing. We have big units that we turn in, and we do that before we start every unit. But no, I do feel I have a good amount of freedom, and it's great. I mean, a lot of my colleagues that I'm very close with at other schools are very jealous of the freedom and the trust that my administration has for me.
And because I've seen the products you put on. It's always good products. Everybody's very happy because I've been a part of 2 of your concerts. And everybody seems to, the parents and the administration always seem to be happy with it. So from as far as I have seen, there's no real reason to not trust you. And that's funny because I feel like so many people get some sort of teaching job where it's like, we'll give you a chance, but we're expecting you to prove us wrong. Right. Essentially. And so it's cool to hear that, like, in your situation, and not all schools are the same. Not all administrations are the same, public or private, but especially in private. They can do whatever, almost whatever they want. A lot of the teachers at your school don't necessarily even have teaching degrees, but they have degrees in their field.
Yes, I think that's pretty consistent at a lot of private schools. I think you'll find a lot of people with, a master's or even a doctorate in English composition, but don't necessarily have any degree in English education, yet they're still teaching. And I think that's a really cool opportunity here. At my school, there are a handful of us with ed degrees, but I think that's pretty consistent at most private schools.
And one of the things that I kind of found interesting when we were having lunch with a lot of your faculty and just kind of talking to people is that it seems like most of the teachers have some sort of life outside of school.
Yeah.
Like, you were telling me about, I forget what subject he taught, but he was like a world-renowned bow hunter. You had one guy who would like go and do marathons all the time. Like everybody had these like outside activities that they always did, but they were still teachers. They weren't, because a lot of public school teachers that I know, they're just either so tired or just so busy that they come home, grade papers or whatever, and crash and wake up and do it again. And the only free time they have is like weekends or something like that. But it seemed like a lot of your staff were just like, they were allowed to be people. And do you think that's just the way the school is set up and how how everything's working that way, or like, and I know you teach a lot. I mean, you're teaching music down the board. So do you feel like you have a lot of the same, do you feel like you have a lot of the same time constraints as like a high school band director in like a public school, or do you feel like you're a little bit more free and they're a little more forgiving with time, or?
Yeah.
It's such a big concern of so many people.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's great that so many of our teachers have outside lives and hobbies, and are some of them are really top in their field in this sort of thing that has nothing to do with education. Speaking for myself, I think I might have a little more spare time, certainly in the fall, because we don't have a football team, so I don't have a marching band. But I'm still after school every day with rehearsals, just not outside on the field with rehearsals, and no Saturdays at a marching band. But something that you do see at least at all boarding schools. I can't speak for all private schools in general, but because we're a boarding school, we have students there over the weekend and over breaks and everything. And so each teacher is expected to do what we call duties, where you're taking them maybe on a shopping trip or maybe to a mixer. So there are 14 or so, I don't know, weekends out of the year where you'll be helping out doing something. So I think it probably all evens out with my time commitment versus your generic high school band director time commitment. But I guess it's just in a little different way.
And so when you started working at this place, I mean, was it what you expected? Were things different? I mean, what were your expectations coming in, and what changed as you kind of went through?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it's easy if you don't have any private school experience. I think it's easy to go in and just assume that it's maybe debutante or very highbrow society, and it wasn't that. It was I was just amazed at how everyone was just very, very kind to everyone. Kids are kids, no matter where you are, no matter what school you're at, no matter where they come from. Kids are kids. The same things make them laugh. The same good behavior, the same bad behavior. But the thing that really just stood out at my school is everyone wants to be there, and simply for the fact that at a private school, if you don't want to be there, you don't have to pay the money to go there. You could either go to another school, or you could go to a free public school. But everyone wants to be there, and that's such a great environment to work in.
Yeah, they chose your school specifically.
Yeah.
Because I was there. I mean, people come and tour it and all that kind of stuff, and you get a lot of people. Like, that is the school they went to.
Yeah.
Like, there was no elementary, middle, and then they came in high school. It was like, it was your school all the way throughout.
Yeah.
Right? And so, because of that, too, I mean, but you're not teaching the lower level school, the elementary age students, right? You're not teaching a general music course at all, right?
Not this year. Last year I taught general music 6, 7, and 8.
Gotcha. But you do start out with a lot of beginners on their instruments or voices, right?
Yes. So this year, when I made that change to teaching 6th grade band this year and 7th and 8th grade band this year, it was each person was beginners because we didn't really have that band class to speak of. So the 7th and 8th grade class, it was awesome. I mean, they were incredible because they had the maturity of the 8th graders, but the playing ability of someone who'd never touched an instrument before. And so they far surpassed where your average 6th grade class would be at the end of the year, simply because they know what it's about. They're that much more mature. They're that much bigger. So, trombone kid can reach 6th position, no problem, because they're 8th graders now. So yeah, I have essentially that the whole middle school just finished the equivalent of what you might say is their first year of band class.
So, and that's kind of a new development now too, right?
Yes. Yeah. We went from having kind of 8, I would say about 8 last year, to having 21 this year. So huge growth.
And what I saw too, it seems like you're trying to focus in the scope of music at your institution as well.
Yes.
Because when you got there, it seemed quite broad. Like everybody was doing everything, which also didn't help that you have a lot of exchange students where English isn't our first language.
Sure.
So teaching something like an instrument can be very difficult. So I mean, having that broad scope just confuses everybody so much more. And so you were saying you're trying to narrow down what's going down, and try to also get everybody on the same level. So like every eighth grader is on this, knows the same things.
Right. Right.
Go on. Sorry.
Well, yeah. So it was, it's kind of two schools of thought. We had before I took over the job, it was kind of everything, which is great because then everyone can participate. The guitar players could play in an orchestra, and you could have 10 flutes if that's what you end up with, which is great. And I love that from a pedagogical standpoint of everyone gets to participate. But the problem is that's a whole lot of extra work on everyone's part. I mean, people were writing out tabs for the guitar players, for the music. That also made it so, you couldn't find music for that instrumentation in the first place, so you're writing everything. Made it so you can't participate in district events or couldn't do festival or assessment or that sort of thing. And so I kind of came in and said, that's great, and I'd love to be able to include those people, but let's see if we can refine that a little bit. So standardized instrumentation. Guitar is great, and we can. And I'm in the process of starting a jazz band, so I think that's going to be a better fit for guitar. I'm starting a guitar class next year that can potentially turn into a guitar ensemble. So there's an outlet for those people to still make music, but with now standardized instrumentation in a standardized band and standardized orchestra. The literature is much easier to find. It gives them a more true experience of playing in that type of ensemble. But I'm very big on, we'll find a way for you to participate. Just it may not be in this orchestra. It may be in the guitar ensemble.
And that's more practical too. I mean, you're not going to find too often guitar sitting in the middle of a wind band, let's say, or
right.
Or an orchestra with 9 flutes in it, like you were saying. Like, and it's really interesting. It's really cool to do the all-inclusive, but in terms of a practicality sense of things, it's actually probably detrimental in a lot of ways to their education, because when they get out, because in music, we actually are giving them a marketable skill. They don't think about it that way, but it is. If they're going to go and be a dentist, they're still going to be able to play like church services or whatever. And so if we keep putting them in, we put students in ensembles that don't actually exist, when they get out there, they don't have those experiences, so they can't function within them very well.
Yeah, and there was a really good Simon Cowell quote that I don't have the quote in front of me, but it was something to the effect of, someone asked him once, don't you feel bad being that mean judge on American Idol? Don't you feel bad that you're the one that says, no, this isn't right, and that's not good? And he said, no, you're doing them more harm by telling them that they sound great and that everything they do is fine. You're doing them more harm by encouraging that. And I kind of thought pedagogically, maybe I'm doing more harm by allowing that sort of ensemble to happen. I mean, redirecting it and finding a way where everyone can be successful, I think that's pedagogically what needs to happen, and ultimately, so that's what I'm trying to do as much as possible.
Yeah, because especially with the students that I saw, but it seems like the enthusiasm level for everything is wicked high with your students.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know what that is. Maybe I'm just lucky and have a great group of kids. I don't know. But I think it still comes back to the people want to be at my school. And I would imagine that's pretty consistent at a lot of private schools. People want to be there, so they're willing to do the work.
Well, and they're just I just felt like a lot of passion for music in general, especially from your older students. And so that was really nice to see. Was this high level of enthusiasm. However, it did definitely and again, I'm talking about mainly your older students who you've had for 2 years, but have been in that system for much longer than that, and they just and it seemed like they had some naive ideas in terms of what the scene is outside of the walls of their school.
Sure.
Which was unfortunate to see. But the good thing is like the enthusiasm level and the work ethic will get them there for sure.
Right.
And I think with you, because you don't speak to them in a naive way. It's not like you're fluffing up these dreams or these ideas of theirs, from what I've noticed. So hopefully, when they get out, they kind of have an understanding of like the work ethic that is required to make things happen. I mean,
yeah, for sure. Well, and I try to speak to them as if they're adults as much as possible. And a lot of them are coming in acting that they can be treated as adults. So I'll speak to them and I tell them how it is.
I mean, academically, it's not an easy school in the first place anyway. So
sure,
the students know work ethic.
Right.
That's for sure. So do you have, what I'm really curious about is, are there any national or statewide standards that you have to follow even though you're not a public institution?
I can't speak for getting the school accredited legally and all that good stuff, but I do not have to follow our state guidelines. But I personally do. We have curriculum that we turn in, and we base everything. The fine arts department bases everything off of our national organizations. So I'm using the NAFME goals as found on their website, and everything based off of that. Then I double check with our state guidelines to refine things by grade level. But if you were to look at my curriculum, it's virtually identical to the NAFME guidelines and standards.
And that's always a good place to start too. If you don't know what you're doing, I mean, just look at, they're there for a reason. People have picked these standards for reasons, but you don't have to take them to any sort of festival to be adjudicated or anything like that.
Right. No, I don't.
Would you ever consider doing that once the program's built up?
Yes. My goal, I'm hoping that this coming year I'll be able to take a group. My goal is to be taking all my groups. One issue with the orchestra is we are the only orchestra with strings within 30, 40 miles at the high school level. So what that means is we would have to travel outside of our district to do that. So I'd have to kind of get creative with that, but at least at the middle school band level, I'm hoping within these next few years, I'm hoping to be there.
What are some of the things that you found that are difficult to get along with, that are just different? I mean, this is your first job, so you probably don't know really the ins and outs of a public school system.
Sure.
But I mean, what are some of the difficulties that you found in the job that you have?
Yeah, school size. We're a very small school, and I think this would hold true at any small school. But a lot of public schools are significantly bigger than us. Our graduation this morning was 28 students. So, being a small school, and today's student really wants to be involved with everything. So that means that half your kids at the school are probably going to be on a sports team, if not more than half of your kids. And I think I did the numbers, maybe 35% of the school is involved in music and somehow, whether it's sixth grade chorus, middle school chorus, or a music class that takes place during the day. So if 30% and if half of the school is involved with sports, we start to get some conflicts. So the first thing I did within being hired was I set up a meeting with with our athletic director, and we have a great relationship. And I wanted to make sure I was very positive and, hey, I'm never trying to step on your toes. I want to work around your schedule. I'm sure we can work around schedules together. And so, I do the schedule, as I'm sure every music teacher does, a year in advance, if not more than a year in advance. And I'm always including athletic director, residence life, with all of these, so that we can work together. But I think if I weren't doing that, we'd have some big challenges really fast. Another thing that I think is challenging at my school is we do have so many students that are not American, and so they may come into school with a quote unquote English proficiency, but that's not necessarily conversational English. That's not necessarily verbal English, and so one of my colleagues was giving me the example of, he'll be teaching AP U.S. history and be speaking about, in 1812, Congress was having a discussion about blah, 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 and go on a 5-minute lecture, and then someone in front row will raise their hand and say, what does Congress mean? Or what does 1812 mean? So it's really it's caused me to slow down. It's
not even like here in Florida, right? I mean, just because of where we are. I mean,
sure.
We have a lot of bilingual students or a lot of non-English, but you can almost be guaranteed that it's Spanish or Creole.
Right.
But you guys are a mixed bag. It could be.
We are.
It could be almost anything.
Out of those 28 graduates this morning, I think we had 11 countries represented. And I think that's a pretty good cross cut for the school. So something that's really nice is very rarely are you going to have one student be the only one from that country, and so we have we do have a significant number of Chinese students, and so these kids are super willing to help each other out and ready to help each other out. So it's pretty common that I'll give instructions to the class, and one of my Chinese students might quickly translate in Mandarin to the person sitting next to her, and okay, good, sit up now, great, get ready. And so that's really nice, and forming that relationship with those students and being more aware of, all right, are they disobeying me because because I don't know, there's something going on? Did they not agree with what I'm saying? Are they having a bad day, or do they simply not understand what I said?
Are there other cultural things too, just in terms of behavior that you've noticed too?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if I have a whole lot of specific ones, but you definitely do see some cultural things. You learn in teaching school that, well, a student from this culture is going to act this way, and a student from this culture is going to act this way, and sure, that may be true, but you'll kind of see some specific things. But it tends to be when students from one country are all together, they tend to eat lunch together. But as they're sitting in your classroom, students assimilate pretty well. I mean, like I said, a kid's a kid wherever they are, wherever they're from. So for the most part, they're going to go with the flow and follow others' leads.
And it's a boarding school, but you guys are in the middle of downtown of the town. So, I mean, are they allowed to wander around and have social lives?
Yeah, they are. I don't know the specifics. I don't live on campus. I'm not a dorm parent or anything. But they are allowed off campus. I think they have to have a partner and check in every X amount of time. And there's some specific places they can't go. Is
there any sort of pay bump or anything like that if you do live on campus? Or do they take care of your housing fees for you, I guess, or something like that?
They do. Yeah, they do that. So your room and board is provided for you.
And did they offer
I don't know
that to
about
you?
the pay. Yeah, they did. It just wasn't really for me right when I started. And then I wasn't married yet, so we weren't sure what our living situation was going to be. And because we're associated with we're a religiously affiliated school, they do not want unmarried couples living together. I mean, very understandably.
So, but that option is there if anybody was like, if it's a 22-year-old guy, no responsibilities to anything, and then they're like, hey, we can put you up. That's an incentive.
Oh yeah.
And they feed you too. You get lunch provided for you, right?
Yeah, every day, and this is all faculty and all staff gets lunch every day, and I think that's true at a lot of private schools, from what I understand.
And from what I noticed too, I mean, all the faculty seems to have a pretty good relationship, young and old, in terms of how long they've been at the school. Do you think that being able to eat lunch together on a regular basis is a big part of that? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, we're just like kids. The best place for us to hang out with each other is at the lunch table. Yeah.
Gotcha. So what are some things that, I mean, the school year just ended. What are some things that you're kind of excited about and working on for the upcoming academic year?
So many things. So I'm teaching. I taught AP this year for the first time, and then next year I'm back to teaching music appreciation. So now that I know what's going into AP, I can really think from that AP perspective as I'm teaching music appreciation as a prerequisite for the following year to be to teach AP. So I really know where I need to go. I can get a little further with that and see if I can have my kids even better prepared. Felt really good at the end of AP this year, but like to feel even better in 2 years. I'm working with a local church and seeing if I can strengthen our relationship. I'm looking to do some collaboration, whether it's a side-by-side or maybe we sing on a Sunday morning church service, or they sing on one of our concerts, or both. Any sort of collaboration. I am looking at, of course, growing and expanding our band and orchestra and choir. Just getting the numbers up every year is my big goal.
Pay based around like how many are enrolled, or do they have a flat fee that they pay every teacher for a certain amount of time they've been there? How's that work out? And preface that, like, this is going to be different at every private school. I'm just trying to give the listeners an idea of what kind of structure they can work out, because I mean, public school is a government structure.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's purely based on time and a little bit of your qualifications. Like if you've taken extra college credits or you have a master's degree, they'll bump you up a little bit depending on what it's in. But like that's one of the big parts about private schools. A lot of people get excited because they tend to pay more. But I also warrant people that like that shouldn't be your main incentive, because they may not necessarily pay more.
Well, none of us became teachers for the paychecks. I mean, I think you show me a teacher that feels like they're truly paid what they deserve. But no, here it's pretty comparable to the local schools, the public schools.
Gotcha. And is it just kind of they give you an offer and you accept, and then performance after there, or?
Yeah, pretty much.
So like any regular job, essentially.
Yeah.
You do well, they'll reward you, essentially. And so, I mean, so that's one of the things I definitely wanted to make sure. And I was having conversations with just people, and they were talking about like, oh, he works at a private school. He probably gets paid so much. I'm like, that's probably not the case. But there is a private school here in town that I know the faculty get paid very, very well. But that's just I think that's the standard here, but I don't think that's the standard elsewhere.
Yeah, it's different everywhere from what I know.
So if you're, talking to the audience now, what are some things that you would say, like, this is why I love teaching where I teach, and this is what I suggest for you, especially if you're thinking about private school, because we've already had people already kind of talk about teaching in generality, so now we're looking at a specific institution, So what were some things that like, what's some advice that you would give some younger people thinking about applying to some private schools?
Yeah, it's great. I like I said, I never thought that I would end up at a private school, not because I had anything against it, or I just it was new to me, but it's one of the best decisions I've made in my life. The teachers are there because they want to be there. The students are there because they want to be there. And I remember when I was student teaching at a public school, and I remember thinking, man, I'm just 90% of what I'm doing is classroom management, and maybe 10% music, maybe 5% music, maybe 5% me falling on my face as a student teacher. And I mean, it's 95% of what I'm doing is music instruction. It maybe 5% is classroom management. I mean, it's so great. But the kids are so fun. And I don't know anywhere else where I would get to work with so many people from so many different backgrounds. I was teaching a class last year, and small class sizes. But I was teaching my introduction to music class last year, had 8 students in it, and of those 8 students, I had 5 different countries represented. I mean, where else are you going to have that? That's so cool. From a music standpoint, it's great. I get to. So, what do you guys listen to in China? What do you guys listen to in Vietnam? And these are students who are already interested in music, so they're coming in with more than just what you would hear on the radio. They'll give you that as well, but they'll give you some really interesting music examples.
Really neat. Really, I mean, and it is. I mean, the school you're at specifically too. It's just. I mean, I had fun in the week that I was there, and it made me. I've always had my doubts about public school music education, or just music education in schools in general, and it kind of reaffirmed a lot of my excitement that I had when I was a student and what music could be. It made me really excited for the state of music education when I went to your school, especially, or just the state of education in general, especially. I mean, I wanted to talk about it on the podcast because seeing the teachers who really wanted to be there was very refreshing. Because I had just gotten off a stint of living with a bunch of teachers who never wanted to be at their job.
Yeah.
And which is sad because, it's such an important part of culture that if teachers are worn down like that, and your school was not that way at all, they were excited.
Yeah.
They were like laughing at lunch, and they weren't complaining about students. Actually, they weren't talking about any of the school stuff at all.
Yeah.
It was really refreshing to see, and it's cool to see that. I mean, you have a good relationship with everybody, and I didn't know anything about that school when I was living in the town, and then when I come and visit you one year, I was like, okay, it's pretty much kind of what I'm expecting. And the next year, it was a lot better, and I only assume it's going to get better and better and better. And so that's obviously a testament to you and your enthusiasm, but also the students and how you're guiding them as well.
Well, thank you.
So, what advice? So, do you have any other advice that you want to give to younger musicians trying to figure out what they want to do? This could be about anything.
Yeah.
Do you have any resources or anything like that would help them out? Anything that was really inspiring to you?
Yeah, for sure. So, advice that I would give is, you're never not a student. Some of my best times when I was student teaching was after I would finish teaching a lesson, and then my cooperating faculty would have taken notes the whole time, and he would sit down and say, all right, well, you took 5 minutes to do this. Could have taken 2 minutes to do this, or 30 seconds, or you did this, this was successful. Why was this not successful? And I wish I could have someone come in my classroom and do that with me now. A music teacher that's just super experienced, but get out and get into other classrooms. I've been in 4 other classrooms in the past 2 years where I just contacted local teachers, music teachers, and said, hey, can I come observe? And I think something that's so cool about our profession is I can't imagine there are many other teachers. I don't think the local English teachers ever get together and I don't know, have a book club discussion that they do. But yet, everywhere you go, you have all the music teachers from the area tend to be involved with something. We have a really, really nice wind ensemble here that a good number of our music teachers play in. We have, they're going to be chorales and community choruses or community choirs that exist wherever you are that all of the local music teachers are going to be involved in. At the very least, at your district meetings for the music teachers are going to be a great place for you to network and just ask them for help. I mean, I asked my district rep, hey, I'm new to this. I would really love some advice about blank. Could you recommend something? And within 5 minutes, I got an email. Hey, I'm a good person, but you might want to check out this guy as well and check out this book. And I just got in the other classrooms and just getting involved with other people. I've played 4 musicals for other schools and hey, can you come play bass for my musical or whatever? Yeah, I'd love to. And now I can see how you do it. And now I'm in your school. And then that's just a connection that we have. And, when I need my my snare drums tuned because I don't really know anything about that to tune all of my percussion section or something. Now I have some resources that I can call back in when I have that.
Yeah, and are you still playing in Massanutten?
Yeah, I'm still doing that. So, I'm personally developing as well. And, by playing in such a high level ensemble, you're doing professional development there as well. I'm a better conductor because of that. I'm a better pedagogue because of that.
Isn't it ridiculous how good of a director Steez is? And he only took basic conducting in undergrad.
Amazing. And well, he knows what he wants, and he knows how to get it.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I mean, I think good conductors can come from good musicians. You don't necessarily have to study it. I'm not saying it doesn't hurt, though.
Yeah, sure.
So do you have any resources for our listeners to kind of get their hands on?
For sure. So something that I think is really important every educational classroom is you need a routine. And so in the chorus world and the choir world, I found pretty much all of my warm-ups come from two books. I can't recommend enough, and maybe it's because I met them both in person. They were just such amazing people. But Andy Beck wrote a book called Vocalize. That's really good because it comes with a CD. So if you're like me and you're not a piano player, you can pop in the CD and have them sing with that while you take attendance or sing with them. Same thing with the second book, Choir Builders, and I think there are a couple volumes of that. I just use volume 1, but Rollo Dilworth's Choir Builders also comes with a CD. Dr. Christine Bass wrote just an amazing pedagogue, vocal pedagogue, and has an amazing DVD vocal transformation. But she has a couple YouTube clips. She's just amazing, and I recommend getting that DVD if you're a choir teacher. One of the best resources, I think all of us today really start to recognize the importance of YouTube. But last year I was looking up choir rehearsal technique on YouTube, and I found just about the best rehearsal. And I think band, chorus, orchestra, everyone should watch this video. I've probably seen it 45 times, but Cranford High School's concert choir rehearsal, look that up on YouTube. Anthony Raffanello. Oh, just amazing. And so I emailed him, and just another example of people who are willing to help you. I emailed him and I said, hey, I found your video on YouTube and I've watched it a bunch, and just really wanted to say, like, thank you. And I love your energy. I love your pacing. I love your professionalism. Do you have any advice for X, Y, and Z? And he got back to me within 2 minutes. I think that's really indicative of our career. Everyone wants to help each other out. We're musicians. If we weren't willing to work with each other, we would all only play solo music ever. But how many people only do that? Most of us play in ensembles as well, and we're working together all the time. When I was teaching general music, the Teaching General Music in grades 4 through 8 book, Regaliski, I believe, wrote that. It's a great book. I can't recommend enough the Leonard B. Smith, going over into the band and orchestra world. Leonard B. Smith's Treasury of Scales. I think Alfred publishes that. Little known fact, it's written for orchestra as well. So it gets your kids playing in 4-part really quickly, and it's just scales with a basic harmony in there. Everyone can do it, no matter how young your band is or your orchestra is, and you can even have them together as full orchestra. Hal Leonard has a really good series of flex band series of just basic 4-part writing, but they'll have part 1 written for, maybe you have a significant number of alto saxophones, so you'll have part 1 in E flat, but also C high and C low. So whatever your instrumentation is, you can have it covered. If you have no low brass, you could have a trumpet kid playing the B flat part 4. So that's a really good series. I've started writing my own music based off of that idea, just in basic 4-part.
That's awesome. 4-part's so handy even just to have one in your own library as a gig
Yeah.
for any gig purposes. Yeah, man, that's awesome. And those are probably the most practical resources anybody's ever had. Normally it's always very like philosophy books. So it's really cool. I mean, helping out a lot of people coming up, like teaching. I remember when I was flirting with the idea of being a middle school band director, teaching beginning clarinet was probably the scariest thing you could have ever told me to do. And so, I can't imagine coming in and having to like teach choir, and especially with a private school, like that's going to be a huge part of it. Well, hey man, thanks so much for coming on and hanging out. This is very short notice. I just called him up. I had like texted him like a week ago. It's like, hey, you want to do this? And he's like, done. Yeah, let's do it. So thank you so much for coming on and helping us out. Is there anything else you want to say or any other advice you want to give?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was really good to be with you. Just don't be afraid to ask for help. Everyone's willing to help out. I had a couple buddies step in and play a couple concerts. Of course, had you in a couple times, and it's been great. People love helping it, and the community really loves seeing that that we have these people around. And one of the cool things about a private school is they really value the arts there. They really value the culture that you bring. So do your best to give them what they want.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Pete. Again, guys, this is the Young Musicians Guide podcast today with Pete Echols. I'm going to list all of his resources in the description down below, depending on whatever platform you're listening to this on. But again, as always, my name is Aaron Campbell, reminding you to be happy, but never satisfied.